What we are looking at is the instance of two complete strangers with the same first name and their terrifying experience with ketamine during police calls.
How much you had to drink?
I'm good.
Elijah McKnight says what happened to him during this 2019 arrest outside Aurora, Colorado should never happen to anyone again.
I was out cold for 3 days on life support, pretty much.
McKnight admits he was drunk on the sidewalk when police arrived to check on him. He tells police there are warrants out for his arrest. All is calm until an officer attempts to cuff him. He resists and is cuffed and tased.
Oh!
But he says what happened when paramedics showed up nearly killed him.
They were acting like I was just the Incredible Hulk and that I was tossing them around.
You're a little too hyped up right now. You gotta relax you guys a little bit more.
I am being cooperative.
You are, and I appreciate it, man.
Paramedics initially determined he doesn't need to be hospitalized.
He doesn't need to go to the hospital.
I'm scared, man. I didn't know.
It's up to you guys.
But then a police officer asks this.
You guys can't give him anything, can you? Unless he goes.
We can give him ketamine and he'll be sleeping like a baby, but we'll have to take him to the hospital.
Don't give me, don't inject anything in my vein. Oh, yeah.
So we'll be able to fight the whole way.
Oh, no, I was still.
We're going to the hospital.
He's fucking the three of us. Just give it to him.
And they do. One shot of 500 milligrams of ketamine. The paramedics report says he's being wildly combative.
Come down at all?
But at this point, video shows him cuffed and lying still, but yelling. They call a physician and get permission to inject him with 250 more milligrams.
So we can actually do surgery on patients with ketamine.
Dr. Mary Dale Peterson says ketamine is an extremely useful drug to treat pain or for general anesthesia. It's so powerful that in Colorado, first responders need a health department waiver to use it. It works fast, can leave a patient conscious but unable to move, unable to speak, and sometimes unable to breathe.
Depending on what study you look at, 30 to 57% of patients will require intubation, where you have to put a breathing tube in.
The controversy is over why and how it's being used by first responders.
They definitely weren't going to give me ketamine until the police asked for it.
Ketamine or any other drug, should not be given for purely law enforcement purposes. We give drugs to treat medical problems.
In McKnight's case, though, the Colorado State Health Department recently determined medics' actions were independent of police request and warranted. McKnight disagrees, but says he's thankful he didn't die, unlike another Colorado man named Elijah that same month.
Stop.
Elijah McClain committed no crime, but he's stopped on his way home after Aurora police are called about a man walking with a ski mask on.
Please respect the boundaries that I am speaking.
Officers confront him. They say he fought them. They put him in a chokehold, causing him to vomit.
Whatever he's on, he has incredible strength.
Yeah, crazy strength.
McClain is already cuffed, face down, saying he can't breathe. An autopsy shows he has no illegal drugs in his system. But when paramedics arrive, they inject him with nearly double the recommended dose for someone of his weight.
I've been in practice 30 years, have never given a dose that high.
McClain died in the hospital 3 days later. The coroner report said McClain died of undetermined causes, but said intense physical exertion, a narrow coronary artery, and a negative drug reaction to ketamine could have contributed to his death. His family has filed a civil lawsuit against Aurora police and the city.
This is an incredible tragedy. This is an example of an innocent young man who is tortured and who is murdered by a combination of both law enforcement and so-called first responders.
But the district attorney determined no charges were warranted in the case. Now, a year after his death, the city, state, and health department have all opened new investigations. But Aurora Fire Rescue determined last November that their paramedics' actions were consistent and aligned with our established protocol, and that McClain was showing signs of excited delirium, a dangerous and often inexplicable condition.
Nope. Just relax.
McKnight was also diagnosed with excited delirium, which can cause a person to become so agitated they exercise themselves to death. The condition is not recognized by any major medical association, but is recognized by the American College of Emergency Physicians.
Even clinicians would have a difficult time diagnosing an excited delirium. And when you employ ketamine, you better be darn sure that this is an excited delirium and not something else.
The Colorado Department of Health's ketamine waiver guideline says excited delirium is a rare syndrome, but data shows from 2018 to 2019, there was a 72% increase in ketamine waivers issued to treat it.
The term excited delirium is being used by law enforcement to justify what is unjustifiable, excessive force against civilians.
Why do you think police asked paramedics to give you something?
They're being lazy and didn't want to do their job. I guess they didn't want to deal with a drunk ass. So it wasn't an excited delirium, I can tell you that.
Authorities won't comment as there is an active case still pending against McKnight. An article in the Journal of Emergency Medical Services says ketamine is an effective drug in the field that can save lives. But there is no national database that tracks ketamine use by EMS workers. Across the United States, we found several ongoing investigations into the use of ketamine by first responders.
In my experience, I have been pressured by police to administer ketamine.
This paramedic in Minnesota says he's speaking out for the very first time about his concern over using ketamine as a policing tool. He is suing the city of Woodbury, saying he had to quit his paramedic job there because he was retaliated against for exposing falsified EMS training records in his department and for refusing to bow to pressure by police to use ketamine on a mental health call when he says it was not medically necessary.
Before we even arrived, we were receiving notes from dispatch asking us to get our ketamine ready. I was met by multiple officers who asked, "Do you have your ketamine ready? Do you have it drawn up?" And I said, "No, I have it available, but I'd like to evaluate this patient first."
What was the reaction?
They were angry. I don't think that they were expecting me to give the response that I did.
What happened ultimately?
There wasn't any reason to give him any medications.
Baker says talking was the best tool in the field that day in 2019, but he paid a price for it.
I was placed on a performance improvement plan for being angry and insubordinate towards a police officer because I was advocating for a patient.
Because you refused ketamine?
Because I refused to administer ketamine.
The city categorically denies all of Baker's allegations and says no records were falsified.
It is a perfect crime.
Baker's attorney, Kenneth Udoybach, says all Baker is doing is trying to protect citizens and the city, knowing what happened in neighboring Minneapolis.
Ketamine should never be a law enforcement tool. It is a medical tool.
In 2018, the Minneapolis Office of Police Conduct Review found the appearance of ketamine in reports increased from 2 in 2010 to 62 in 2017, a 3,000% increase. Analysts observed 8 cases where MPD officers participated in the decision to administer ketamine.
We can't simply substitute injecting people involuntarily with a dangerous psychotropic drug instead of talking. It's not constitutional.
The McLean family and McKnight believe that is exactly what happened in their cases.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't to keep me or them safe because it almost killed me.